Hello everybody, today we will discuss about survey research, meaning in types, sampling, meaning need in design. What is survey research? Survey research is defined as the process of conducting research using surveys that researchers send to survey respondents. The data collected from survey is then statistically analyzed to draw meaningful research conclusions. Survey research is the method of gathering data from respondents thought to be representative of some population using an instrument composed of closed structure or open-ended items. This is perhaps the dominant form of data collection in the social sciences, providing for efficient collection of data over broad populations in person, by telephone, and over the internet. In the 21st century, every organization is eager to understand what their customers think about their products, about their services, and to make the better business decisions. The traditional definition of survey research is a quantitative method for collecting information from a pool of respondents by asking multiple survey questions. This process involves asking people for information through a questionnaire, which can be either online or offline. Common types of survey include interviews and questionnaires, opinions, and polls. A survey can be anything from a short paper and pencil feedback form to an intensive one to one in depth interview. The data is usually obtained through the use of standardized procedures to ensure that each respondent can answer the questions at a level playing field to avoid biased opinions that could influence the outcome of the research or the study. There are several issues to consider when creating a survey, including its content, its wording, response format, and question placement and sequence. All of these choices can affect the answers given by participating individuals. There are certain types of survey research. First one is online survey. It is one of the most popular type of surveys. With the increasing of technology and advancing of technology into many folds with the each passing day, and online surveys becoming more and more popular. This survey consists of survey questions that can be easily deployed to the respondents online via email, or they can simply assist the survey if they have an internet connection. These types of surveys are less expensive and data can be collected and analyzed quickly. These surveys are easy to design and very simple to deploy. Next is paper surveys. This survey uses the traditional paper and pencil approach. These surveys can go where computers, laptops, and other devices cannot go. It includes deploying large number of human resources also, along with time and money. It is the most expensive method of data collection. Third, telephonic survey. Researchers conduct surveys over telephones. Respondents need to answer questions related to research topic by the researcher. These surveys are also time consuming and sometimes they are also non-conclusive. The success of this telephonic survey depends on how many people answer the phone calls of the researcher. And the last is the one-to-one interview. The one-to-one interview helps the researcher to collect information or data directly from a respondent. It's a qualitative research method and it depends on the knowledge, on the efficiency, and on the experience of a researcher to frame and ask relevant questions one after the other to collect meaningful insights from the interview. These types of interviews can last from 30 minutes up to a few hours. So these are the types of the survey research. Next is the meaning of sampling. Sampling is a method of collecting information and drawing inferences about a larger population or universe from the analysis of only a part thereof the sample. In other words, a sample is a subset of the population that represents the entire group. It means when the population or the universe is too large for the researcher to survey all its members, a small, carefully chosen sample is extracted to represent the whole. A sample refers to a smaller, manageable version of a larger group. It is a subset containing the characteristics of a larger population. A sample should represent the population as a whole and not reflect any bias towards a specific attribute. So the sample, in other words, is a portion, it's a part, a fraction of the whole group, and it acts as a subset of the population. So samples are used in a variety of settings where research is conducted. Scientists, marketers, government agencies, economics, and research groups are among the who are using samples for the studies and measurements. So sampling may be defined as a selection of some part of an aggregate or totality on the basis of which a judgment, a conclusion about the aggregate or a totality is made. It is the process of obtaining information about an entire population by examining only a small part of it. In most of the research work and surveys, the approach happens to be to make generalizations or to draw inferences based on the samples about the parameters of population from which the samples are taken. All this is done on the assumption that the sample data will enable the researcher to estimate the population parameters. The item so selected is technically called a sample, and their selection process or technique is called the sample design. And the survey conducted on the basis of sample is described as the sample survey. So next is the need for sampling. Sampling can save time and money. It may enable more accurate measurements for a sample study is generally conducted by trained and experienced investigators. So it always leads reliable, always leads accurate results because it is not conducted by each and everyone. Sampling is generally conducted by the experts, by the trained, by the professional investigators. So it is the only way when the population contains the infinitely many members. Sampling remains the only choice when a test involves the destruction of the item under study. Sampling usually enables to estimate the sampling errors and thus assist in obtaining information concerning some characteristics of the population. Next is the design of sampling. A sample design is a definite plan for obtaining a sample from a given population. It refers to the technique or the procedure or method the researcher would adopt in selecting items for the sample. Sample design may as well lead on the number of items to be included in the sample, the size of the sample, and the size of the sample is determined before the actually data are collected. So here are various steps in the sample design. First one is the type of universe. The first step in developing any sample design is to clearly define the set of objects, which is technically called the universe, to be studied. The universe can be finite or infinite. In finite universe, the number of item is certain, but in case of an infinite universe, the number of item is infinite. The population of a city, the number of workers in a factory, and the like are examples of finite universe. Where is the number of stars in the sky, listeners of a specific radio program, throwing of a dice, etc., are examples of infinite universes. Next is the sampling unit. Sampling unit may be a geographical one, such as state, district, village, etc., or a construction unit such as house, flat, etc., or it may be a social unit such as family, club, school, or it may be an individual. The researcher will have to decide one or more of such units that he has to select for his study. Next is the source list. It is also known as sampling frame from which sample is to be drawn. It contains the names of all items of the universe. So if the source list is not available, the researcher has to prepare it. And such a list should be comprehensive, it should be correct, reliable and appropriate. And it is extremely important for the source list to be as representative of the population as possible. Next is the size of sample. This refers to the number of items to be selected from the universe to constitute a sample. The size of sample should neither be excessively large nor too small. It should be optimum. An optimum sample is one which fulfills the requirements of efficiency, representativeness, reliability, and flexibility. While deciding the size of sample, a researcher must determine the desired precision as also an acceptable confidence level for the estimate. The size of the population must be kept in view, for this also limits the sample size. The parameters of interest in a research study must be kept in view while deciding the size of the sample. Cost too affects the study. So the size of the sample should be drawn while considering its cost. Budgetary constraints must be taken into consideration when we are deciding the sample size. Next is the parameters of interest. In determining the sample design, one must consider the question of the specific population parameters which are of interest. For instance, we may be interested in estimating the proportion of persons with some characteristics in the population, or we may be interested in knowing some average or the other measures concerning the population. So there may also be important subgroups in the population about whom we would like to make estimates. And all these have a very much strong impact upon the sample design we would like to choose. Next is the budgetary constraints. So cost constraints from a practical point of view, and it has a very major impact upon the decisions relating not only to the size of the sample but also to the type of the sample. And this fact can even lead to the use of the non-probability sample also. And last one is the sampling procedures. Finally, the researcher must decide the type of the sample he will use. He must decide about the technique or the procedure stands for the sample. There are several sample designs out of which the researcher must choose one for his study. So obviously, he must select that design which for a given sample size and for a given cost has a very less chances of sampling error. Thank you.